All right, let's jump right in and break down the most critical threats facing pretty much every modern application today. We're going to be talking about the silent engines of our digital world, APIs. From ordering your morning coffee to checking your bank balance, APIs are literally everywhere, connecting all the services and data that make our lives work. But here's the catch. That very interconnectedness makes them the #1 target for attackers.
So, you might be wondering, how do we even know what the biggest risks are? Well, for that we turn to the definitive guide, the Open Web Application Security Project, or OWASP. They give us the roadmap with their 2023 top 10 list, and it's built from real-world data showing exactly how attackers are getting in.
Let's kick things off with the most common and, frankly, the most dangerous category of flaws out there. And it's not about some super complex, movie-style hack. It all boils down to a very simple, fundamental question. Who is allowed to do what?
This is risk number 1. Officially, it's called Broken Object Level Authorization, or BOLA for short. And the best way to think about it is like a hotel key card. Your key should only open your room, right? Well, BOLA is like having a master key card that can open any room in the entire hotel. It's a total failure to check permissions at the most basic level.
And if you're thinking this is some rare, exotic vulnerability, take a look at this. Recent data shows that this one flaw affects over 90% of all APIs they tested. That is not a typo. This isn't a niche problem. It's an incredibly widespread, systemic issue. It's practically everywhere.
And the attack itself? It's almost laughably simple, which is what makes it so scary. An attacker logs in as a regular user, and they find a request that pulls up their own data, say user ID 123. Then they just try changing that number. They swap 123 for 124 and hit send. A vulnerable API won't even check if they're allowed to see user 124's data. It'll just hand it right over.
So here's the absolute key takeaway. Just proving who you are by logging in, that's not enough. The system has to recheck your permissions for every single piece of data you ask for on every single request. Authentication gets you in the front door. Authorization is what determines which rooms you're actually allowed to enter.
Now, BOLA is what we call a horizontal attack. You're basically moving sideways to peek into your neighbor's data. But this is different from the number 5 risk, which is Broken Function Level Authorization, or BFLA. That's a vertical attack. Here, a user isn't just seeing someone else's data, they're trying to climb the ladder to gain access to powerful admin functions they should never have.
But attackers aren't just targeting flaws in the code anymore. They're getting way more creative. Let's look at how they're now taking a system's own features and turning them into weapons. This one is a really fascinating and newer kind of threat. It's not about finding a bug, it's about taking an API's perfectly legitimate intended features and just weaponizing them through massive automation to abuse the business model itself.
And this just shows you exactly how it works. Think about buying concert tickets. The buy ticket function is working perfectly, but a bot can call that function 1,000 times a second, buying up every single seat before a human can even click the button. Or imagine an attacker repeatedly triggering a send verification code feature, forcing a company to pay for millions of text messages. The code isn't broken, but the business is being attacked.
Okay, now let's talk about how even the best-laid defenses can completely fall apart because of simple, preventable mistakes. This is often about nothing more than bad housekeeping and basic oversights. The Capital One breach is the perfect and painful case study for this. It all started with just one single thing, a misconfigured firewall. That one mistake created a tiny crack that an attacker could slip through. They used that crack to trick the server into asking itself for its own security credentials. And with those keys, they basically walked right into the vault and downloaded data on 100 million customers.
And that just leads to a really stark reality. It's often not some brilliant, sophisticated exploit that leads to these massive breaches. It's a basic oversight, a default password left unchanged, a setting misconfigured that can unravel your entire security plan.
So with this whole landscape of threats, from simple ID manipulation to weaponized business logic, what's the proactive playbook? How do we actually build secure systems in this environment?
Well, first you have to know your enemy. The risks we've talked about, like broken authorization and business flow abuse, they're just pieces of a much bigger picture. And here it is, the full OWASP Top 10. This is the definitive checklist that security teams and developers are focused on today.
The solution isn't just buying a single tool. It's a strategic mindset built on a few core principles. You have to adopt a deny by default philosophy. Nobody gets access to anything unless you explicitly allow it. You centralize your security with an API gateway, a single checkpoint for all traffic. You maintain a continuous inventory because you can't protect an API you forgot you had. And finally, you implement a zero-trust model. That means you never trust and you always verify every single request.
Ultimately, this whole list leaves us with a critical question to think about. The digital world is built on APIs, and as they evolve and get more powerful and interconnected, our defenses have got to evolve right along with them. It really forces you to ask, is your security built for the threats of yesterday, or is it ready for what's coming tomorrow?